All right. So we've got a good critical mass. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And Corey, I'm going to pass the admitting people duties on to you at this point. So hi, everyone, and welcome to our extended breakout of the day. This session is called Your Voice Counts. How to advocate for safe routes to school. So I want to just commend you for being in this room, especially if that A word scares you in any way. We are really here to talk about the role that each of us has to play in strengthening our collective safe routes to school movement. And we all have a role to play. We play different roles, but each of us plays a really important role. So I promise to make sure that if that word scares you in any way, that you will leave this session feeling much more comfortable with it and understanding what your role is and how to take action. So what are we going to cover today? Today, we are going to talk very briefly on a primer of federal policy on safe routes to school. We are going to talk about the Safe Routes to School coordinator bills currently in US Congress. We're going to talk about how you can support growing the Safe Routes to School movement, its impact, its efficacy, make it easier and safer for kids in all kinds of communities to walk and bike, how you can help do that. We are going to talk about lobbying versus education. We are going to hear about experience of local advocacy. We're going to hear about local experience about running safe routes to school programs in states with and without safe routes to school coordinators. And then because if you know us at the partnership, you know we love to get practical. So we are going to have some really nitty gritty how-tos on how to have meetings with members of Congress, how to call them, and how to host events with members of Congress. So that's our roadmap for today. And bringing you this information, we have, there are three of us who are going to be meeting with you today. So if we haven't met, I'm Marisa Jones. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Managing Director of Policy and Partnerships here at Safe Routes Partnership. I've been with the organization for almost 10 years and worn a lot of different hats here. And one of the hats that I wear is that I'm our federal lobbyist. So one of my key responsibilities is making sure that Safe Routes to School stays funded and prioritized at the federal level. Joining me, we have
Agreed.
Karma Hansen, who is with All True in North Dakota. Oh my gosh, I lost your bio. Let me pull it up. Karma is a registered nurse and is the coordinator of Safe Kids Grand Forks, an injury prevention coalition based at All True Health System in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Safe Kids' mission is to reduce preventable injuries and fatalities among children under the age of 19. This coalition serves Northeast North Dakota and Northwest Minnesota. Karma has been a key advocate for safer environments, contributing to both local and statewide efforts to prevent unintentional injuries, particularly those related to roadways. Her work spans a variety of areas, including education, environmental design, and legislative advocacy. And rounding out our panel today is Jocelyn Awalabi, who is our federal policy intern at Safe Routes Partnership. Jocelyn is a junior at Howard University, and believe it or not, she is currently in class. So she is going to finish up our panel after Karma and I present, but she will be here today and has been such an incredible asset to our organization and a breath of fresh air and energy in our advocacy on Capitol Hill. So already today, you have probably joined several Mentimeters, and this session is no exception. So we are going to be using Mentimeter as a way to hear from you. In the beginning, while we're doing these presentations, we're going to be using Mentimeter, and then at the end, we can all come off mute and have a conversation. So there are three ways that you can join the Mentimeter for this session. You can scan that QR code. You can go to menti.com and add in this code, enter that code, or you can you can type out that direct link that is on the screen, which I believe Corey has also put in the chat. So I'm going to give everybody a moment. Thank you, Corey, for putting that in the chat. So everyone take a moment to join the Menti because we're about to start with a word cloud. All right. Oh boy. Okay. So here is our Menti today. What comes to mind when you hear the word advocacy? Wow, lots already in here. Okay, lobbying, having a voice, get it done. I love that. Change making, advancing an initiative, convince, speaking up, talking to policymakers, perseverance, pushing for change, voice for the community, testimony. Okay, clearly this is not this group's first rodeo. We have some folks in the Zoom room who have familiarity with using your voice to make change, and that does not surprise me in the slightest with our incredible Safe Routes to School field. I'm going to read a couple more of these. Personalizing message. Oh, frustration. That is definitely part of it. Stories. Okay, the biggest ones I see are passion, support, voice, champion, action. So go ahead and feel free to keep adding to those as you wish. And we are going to revisit this a couple more times throughout today's session. So thank you everybody for participating in the Menti. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to kick us off on the content now that we've had a moment to welcome people into the room. And the topics that I'm going to cover are a primer on federal policy for Safe Routes to School. I'm going to go into the details on these Safe Routes to School coordinator bills in the US Congress right now. I'm going to talk about why it's important for each and every one of you to be part of turning this into law, and then most importantly, having a real impact on kids and communities' lives. And we are going to have a fun little game where to help us understand the difference between lobbying and education, because I know that lobbying and advocacy can sometimes seem scary, or they can feel like things like, oh, I'm not allowed to do this. Though I will say from that word cloud, sounds like a lot of you have danced in this space before. So maybe it's a refresher for some of you. So a little bit about the Safe Routes Partnership and how we as an organization advance safe routes to school at the federal level. So one of the main things that we do is that we are the national organization representing the interests of Safe Routes to School and the Safe Routes to School movement on Capitol Hill and with agencies. So we really are tasked with ensuring that there is federal law and funding for the Safe Routes to School field to make sure that Congress is thinking about the unique needs of kids walking and bicycling to and from school as part of transportation policy. So that is really the big picture of what we do when we talk about our federal policy work. Other ways that we advance Safe Routes to School policy. So we hold institutional knowledge on how this program has worked over the past 20 years. I remember when I was in policy school and graduate school, and the summer reading was like learning all the history of SNAP and WIC and Medicaid. And these books were kind of dry, but what it instilled in me is that we can't chart a path forward without understanding where we've been and why we've been there. Our organization has been a knowledge keeper on this program and understands why certain decisions were made in federal policy, who supported what, why did this member of Congress oppose this provision? Because transportation law only gets reauthorized every 5 years or so. And a lot of congressional staffers turn over in that time. And so they come to us and ask, well, wait, why did this happen in the FAST Act? And what happened in Safety Lou? And we're we're here to really be that continuity of the history and the legislative history and the impact of this program. Other things that we do, we engage with all of you. We hear from you, and we also do research and work with academic partners to do research to understand what's working in Safe Routes to School, what's not working, and how. And then we use our policy prowess and knowledge to figure out, like, okay, based on what we're hearing and what the research is showing us, here's an opportunity, and here's how we can use federal policy to make things better. And I won't bore you with all the ways that we've done that, but if you ever want to chat, this is like my favorite topic ever, so we can talk about that. We've got charts on our website. But I want to be really clear that this comes from hearing from all of you, you telling us, like, it's really challenging to do X, Y, or Z. And then us corroborating with others if that's like a unique experience or a shared experience. And then if it's a shared experience, how can we use law to address it? Another way that we work on federal policy is that we maintain and cultivate relationships with members of Congress and agency staff. So for any of you who are longtime readers of our federal policy blog at saferoutespartnership.org, you may remember over the last couple of years, we shared with you that most of our congressional champions for our issues retired since 2021. So we need champions on Capitol Hill to introduce our legislation, or we collaborate on legislation and they need to introduce it. You can't do that. It's really hard to do that without relationships. So as long as we've been working on federal policy, we take a very strong relationship focused approach where we are meeting with members, hearing what they care about, telling stories and showing the impact in their communities. But this has really been a huge focus for us over the past 4 or 5 years. It's cultivating new champions within Congress, and of course, maintaining their longtime relationships that we have with a number of our members of Congress. Other things we do is we draft legislation. We look at US code and we figure out, like, how can we tinker with this to make these programs work better, create glide paths. So we'll draft legislation, work with Congress to get that introduced, and then we advocate for that legislation. We pound the pavement. Jocelyn and I are on the Hill. Karma and I were on the Hill together last week. We are really working to make the case for the bills that we help lobby for. We also, every quarter, and Jocelyn will talk a little bit more about this in her work, we do a lot of tracking and analysis. We have so many spreadsheets where we're really trying to understand dollars and where they're going and what states are doing with them. So we do a lot of that. We also have that up on our website if you ever want to look at the quarterly obligations of, for example, Transportation Alternatives Program dollars. That's on our website. That really helps us inform our advocacy, helps us figure out, like, okay, where is the breakdown happening? What are the trends we're seeing? And is there a way to use the law to fix it? And another thing that we do is we work to build support for bills. And that is the main thing that we are going to talk about today. And Karma and Jocelyn especially are going to talk about your role. You are the support that is needed to help turn these bills into law. And while I might use that as shorthand today, at the end of the day, we're not just content when, like, oh, the law passed. No, we're content when the law gets implemented and more kids can safely and joyfully walk, bike, and roll to school. So that's really what we are all here together today to endeavor toward. Okay, so we have been talking a lot about our 20th anniversary, both of Safe Routes Partnership and of the federal Safe Routes to School program. So, like, real talk, what are we talking about when we talk about a 20th anniversary? So in August of 2005, Congress passed the transportation law called Safety Lou. And in that law, it created the federal Safe Routes to School program. For those of you, I know our movement is really wonderful because we have some people who have been here since before day one, and we have some people. for whom today is day one.
You're fine.
So bear with me with just a little bit of background here. So that bill created the federal Safe Routes to School program. And that's really what we're celebrating with this 20-year anniversary. That's when our organization got started, and we worked with Congress to create the federal Safe Routes to School program. So Safe Routes to School grew out of local work. And I think that's a really important thing to know. Like, even though we're celebrating the 20-year anniversary of our organization and of the federal law passing, Safe Routes to School was happening before federal law created it in all 50 states. Local advocates, including our organization's founder, worked to create local Safe Routes to School programming in Marin County, California. In 1999, California created a statewide Safe Routes to School program. In 2000, Marin, California, and Arlington, Massachusetts were funded pilot sites with NHTSA funding. And our organization and several other partners really took those local stories and collected data to show, wow, if we focus on making it easier and safer for kids to walk and bike to school, more kids will walk and bike to school. And the data and the energy from these local pilots was harnessed and paired with this inside advocacy with Congress to create the federal Safe Routes to School program. So I love this picture because you can just like see how grainy it is. This is from 2000. This is a bike train in Marin County, or bike bus, whatever you want to call it. What year is it? 25 years ago, really showing this energy is palpable. And this is the local work. So people getting out and saying, we want this. We want to be able to walk and bike to school. The data that shows if you invest, kids will walk and bike to school. And then you see on the other side, our founder, Deb Hubsmith, and Congressman Oberstar, who championed the original legislation in 2005. This has always been a virtuous cycle of local work fueling federal policy. And I want to share, this is something that our organization is predicated on this model of local work and federal advocacy, and they really work together. Okay, so again, reflecting on these 20 years of Safe Routes to School, and I know looking at the names in the chat, some of you have been here forever and some of you are brand new. And so I just want to give a really, really high level of some inflection points on federal policy and Safe Routes to School. For anybody who wants a more detailed version, on the prior slide, I have a link to like a narrative of the history of Safe Routes to School in the US. And on this slide, I have a link to this infographic that shows the history of Safe Routes to School through 4 transportation reauthorizations. But what I really want you to take away from this is how impactful federal law can be on Safe Routes to School, both from a positive and a negative perspective. So we can see in 2005, Safe Routes to School was required and funded and staffed in every single state. Thumbs up, love that. 2012, Safe Routes to School was consolidated and no longer a standalone program, no more dedicated funding, no more required staffing in every state. Don't love that. In 2021, Safe Routes to School was expanded to high schools. Love that. So we can see that we have these windows of opportunity where we can use federal law to make a big impact on Safe Routes to School. And what I want to say is that we are in one of those policy windows right now. So all of you here, consider this your invitation to be part of what's next. And we are aiming towards positive, impactful change for Safe Routes to School. So as our federal policy person, I think people think I have a crystal ball. So I just want to disabuse anybody of the idea that I have a crystal ball. So any questions about like when the shutdown's going to end, what's going to happen next, like I don't know. We can talk about that in the Q&A, but I just want to say I don't know. But what I can tell you is what I do know about what's happening on the federal level on Safe Routes to School. So the first thing is that transportation reauthorization. That's what we call these bills that happen every 5 years or so. So that's what created federal safe routes to school. That's what expanded to high schools. That's what consolidated safe routes to school. That needs to happen by September 30th of 2026. So we're in that window. Reauthorization happens every 5 or so years, and it sets policy and funding for 5 years. This is our key opportunity to use federal law to improve safe routes to school. And where we're at right now is that full transportation bills, not just safe routes to school bills, full bills are being drafted in both the House and the Senate. We are anxiously awaiting bill text to drop to see what's going to be in them, because I don't have a crystal ball. So I want to let you know what our key ask is, what we think will make a real positive difference for the field of safe routes to school and what we are advocating for in this reauthorization. Our ask is that statewide safe routes to school coordinators are reinstated in every state. Under the original federal Safe Routes to School program that was established in 2005, every state DOT was required to have a full-time staff person focused on administering Safe Routes to School funding. So that was in 2005. Then in 2012, when the program was folded into transportation law more broadly, states were allowed but no longer required to dedicate a full-time staff person to Safe Routes to School. And I know from looking at the list that some of you are state safe routes to school coordinators, and thank you for your amazing work, and thanks for being here. State safe routes to school coordinators play a really important role in making sure that safe routes to school funding is accessible, liaising between school systems and transportation professionals, and providing technical assistance to schools and communities. The transportation law that was passed in 2021 provides several new ways for states to pay for this position, either housed within a Department of Transportation, another state agency, or contracted out to a private sector or nonprofit organization, but it is not required. So why? I mean, I just talked about how they can be paid for and the role that they play, but sometimes I think it's helpful to just put like the most simple spin on it, which is that I'm willing to bet that most people on today's call have had a job before. And so if you just think about your normal workflow, if your boss is like, hey, somebody needs to run this program, but doesn't task anybody with doing it, doesn't check in on it, doesn't assign any resources to it, like it's probably not going to get done, or it's not going to get done well. And so at the most basic, programs without staff don't get implemented. And that is why we believe that if every state has a statewide coordinator, this program will be more efficient and effective. So what is the state of play? Where are we at? How many states have safe routes to school coordinators? So this is from our 2024 state report cards. As of 2024, 18 states have at least two full-time staff focused on safe routes to school. In addition to those 18, another 8 states have at least one FTE focused on safe routes to school, and 7 states have staff where safe routes to school is included in their job description. So it's about half of states that have somebody who's tasked with working on safe routes to school. And I'm excited that Karma is going to talk about her experience working in these 2 states, one with and one without safe routes to school coordinators, because I think that also shows like how our organization works. Like we're doing this research and then we're also hearing the local experience. Safe routes, this is also from our state report cards, but research shows a correlation between the presence of a statewide safe routes to school coordinator and emerging and best practices. So states with state coordinators are 4 times more likely to offer resources that help local programs get started, 12 times more likely to help communities access funds and tools, and 5 times more likely to have state safe routes to school curricula. So we've talked a little bit about this, but what could a state safe routes to school coordinator mean for your safe routes to school program? A champion within your DOT. You want somebody with decision making capability to make sure that kids are walking and biking are included in projects, programs, and policies. Safe Routes to School coordinators help money flow for educational programming, and encouragement events, in addition to building infrastructure. Safe Routes to School coordinators stay up to date on new flexibilities and provide consistent guidance, including on eligible applicants and activities. They help build constituencies for walking and biking generally. So Safe Routes to School programming can build support for biking and walking initiatives for people who might not consider themselves like a bike or pedestrian advocate. I think it's important to also just again, bring it down a level. What does having a state Safe Routes to School coordinator do if they're helping more funding flow to communities? And truly, it's about getting more funding and resourcing for the kind of work that you want to do, whether that's in school on bike education, bike and walk to school day events, bike and pedestrian count. So all the classic Safe Routes to School activities that we know and love. So with that, I want to take a moment now to talk about what these bills are in US Congress. So I want to start, we have a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate. They are a little bit different, but they have a shared goal of reinstating state Safe Routes to School coordinators. So we're going to start with the House bill. We know it's the House because it starts with HR, House Resolution. This is called the Kids on the Go Act of 2025. So in the photo in the center is Representative Hillary Skolton from the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. She is our lead sponsor. She's joined by the original co-sponsor, Rob Bresnahan, Republican from Northwestern Pennsylvania. And the kiddo in the blue is Representative Skolton's son. So this bill is structured as an incentive. It does not require a state to have a coordinator, but it says if your state has a coordinator, your local match for Safe Routes to School projects drops from 20% to 5%. And that's a whole other session, but we know that the local match is a barrier for folks. So this is a way to feed two birds with one scone. Make the money more accessible by reducing the local cash match required, and have somebody who's really stewarding and shepherding the funds. So I talked in the beginning about one of our jobs is cultivating champions in Congress. And so one of the things I'm really excited about with the House bill is that both Representative Skolton and Representative Bresnahan are new champions for Safe Routes to School. And if you go onto congress.gov and look at the list of co-sponsors, including one that I think Karma will talk about in her presentation, they are mostly, not entirely, but mostly new supporters of Safe Routes to School. And so that is really exciting for us to build a new generation of congressional champions that we will be able to work with over time to keep a focus on Safe Routes to School. Super exciting. Okay, then we jump over to the Senate bill. It's the Senate with the S. Senate Bill 1828 is the Safe Routes Improvement Act. So this bill is really straightforward. It's structured as a requirement. It says states are required to have a state Safe Routes to School coordinator. Full stop. So our sponsors here are Senator Kevin Cramer, who's in the middle of that top picture, Republican from North Dakota, and then Senator Ed Markey, who is off on the right in that photo, but I don't think you can see him, who's a Democrat from Massachusetts. So on the Senate side, it's a little different than the House. Both Senator Cramer and Senator Markey are longtime supporters of Safe Routes to School. We love that too. We also love knowing that there are members who are deeply committed to this program. So this is just, I love a chart, just like a little snapshot to be able to see. And the main thing that I want to share is these aim to do the same thing. They take a different approach, and both are bipartisan, and both have been bipartisan from day one. So who is supporting this bill? So I want to share, here's a list of national organizations who support this bill. And here's a list of state and local organizations that support this bill. So there's lots of support for this bill in addition to them being bipartisan, which is great. So all of this is wonderful, and yet we are still here because we need your help building support. Why is that? We ultimately want more co-sponsors of these bills. Having more co-sponsors means that we have more members saying, this matters to me. And then that improves our chances of getting this language into that large surface transportation reauthorization. Why else? Co-sponsors give us a starting point for cultivating new champions. Maybe one of these members is going to retire. Maybe one of them is not going to win their reelection. We can still then go back to that list and say, oh, you supported this in 2025. We'd love to explore what it would look like for you to be the lead sponsor. And then really critically, Safe Routes to School is represented by the more than 400 of you attending today's summit and our vast network of partners across the country. Is that Safe Routes to School is not just one thing, and it doesn't just benefit one kind of community. And so we like having a wide variety of co-sponsors that help make the case that like we don't want Safe Routes to School to just be pigeonholed, like, oh, it's just for big cities. No, it's supported by lots of different kinds of members. So how can you support? Karma and Jocelyn are going to take you through how you do these things, but here are some key ways you can support. On the next slide, I'm going to have a QR code where you can sign your organization or agency on in support of these bills. If you are an unattached individual, this is not the step for you, but if you're with a nonprofit or a health system, for example, you could sign on to this. We want you to call your member of Congress. We want you to meet your member of Congress. We want you to invite your member of Congress to see Safe Routes to School in action. And even though we're talking about these 5-year windows of opportunity, you can also reach out to us any old time, share your stories, share your challenges, share your ideas, because this is really what helps us move this work forward at the federal level. So I'm going to give everybody a moment. If you want to scan that QR code, we will also share a link. If you want to add your organization to the list of endorsing agencies, we welcome that. Okay, so hopefully you are feeling jazzed and you're feeling like, yes, I want to be part of this reauthorization and helping get statewide Safe Routes to School coordinators, helping expand our collective movement. But maybe you're a little dodgy, a little nervous about what it means to lobby. Maybe your work has told you, like, you can't lobby, you can't advocate. So I want to take a minute here to be really clear about what is and what is not lobbying. And just like prep yourselves, we're going to like go to a Menti in a minute. So just, if you're not at your computer, if you're making lunch, come back for a minute because we have a fun little game. But I want to be really clear about what lobbying is. Lobbying is when you ask a member of Congress or an elected decision maker to vote a particular way about a specific bill or issue. There are lots of rules about lobbying. I register, I log my time, I disclose all sorts of stuff regularly. There's a whole system. Lobbying, the key question, and like backing up for a second, pretty much anyone can lobby, you just have to follow these rules. So usually it's not like a hard line, but just FYI. So the key question about whether something is or is not lobbying is, are you asking them to take action on a specific piece of legislation or issue? So we like to, if you can lobby, awesome, go for it. If you have concerns about lobbying and want to talk to you about education, educating members of Congress and getting right up to that line of lobbying without crossing it. I never want anybody to feel uncomfortable. In fact, my whole goal is to like dispel any notion that this is like complicated or not allowed. Oh, I'm raising my own hand with my gestures. Oops. So educating is letting your member of Congress know about the positive impacts of Safe Routes to School, the benefits of Safe Routes to School, inviting them to events so that they can experience it. Anyone can educate. And the key thing here is you are not saying, please vote yes on HR 3931. You're saying, look how amazing Safe Routes to School is. Look at the impact of this in our community. And I put a link down here to a webinar that we hosted on, it was held by a lawyer, I can't talk right now, sorry, lobbying for nonprofits. Okay, so I am definitely a experiential learner, and maybe you are too. So I want to play a little game where we figure out whether things are lobbying or education. So please go to the Menti. Oh wait, sorry. One sec. Let me go back so you have the code. Um, I didn't put it in the right spot. I apologize. Here's the code and the QR code and the link. Maybe you already have it, maybe not, but I'll put it here for a minute. So I'm going to try and figure out how to lower my hand, which I can't seem to do. Okay, so what is the question? Sorry, folks. Okay, meeting with your member of Congress and asking them to vote yes on or support either of these specific bills I talked about. Is this lobbying or is this education? Let's take a minute. Okay, I'm overwhelmingly seeing that this is lobbying. I see a couple that this is education. Excuse me. Okay, so this is lobbying. I want to be really clear about the distinguishing factor here, just because I don't want anybody to get in, I don't want you to have any concerns about this. When you are asking a member of Congress to vote a particular way on a specific bill, that is like the basic definition of lobbying. So this one definitely is lobbying. We are going to jump ahead. Okay, is this lobbying or education? Sharing factual information about safe routes to school. Sorry, I can't actually read my slide. Something is hidden. This is awkward. Sharing factual information about safe routes to school as an evidence-based strategy to improve traffic safety. Lobbying or education? All right, y'all have been paying really good attention. This is education. So for the person who thought it was lobbying, it's not lobbying because we're not asking this member to take action and we're not naming a specific bill or issue that we want them to take action on. So we're just putting information out there. Education. Okay, the next one. Sorry, MOC is the abbreviation for member of Congress. Is this lobbying or education? Meeting with your member of Congress to let them know how valuable Safe Routes to School funding has been in your community. Okay, so I know this one's a little tricky because it involves meeting with your member of Congress, but just meeting with your member of Congress does not constitute lobbying. In this case, we're just saying Safe Routes to School funding has been so important to us. It has yielded improvements in traffic safety, school attendance. We love this program so much. There's no ask and there's no specific piece of legislation that we're asking them to take issue on. So great job. This is education. And either have one or two more. Let's see. Okay. Is this education or lobbying? Providing your member of Congress with a fact sheet on the impact of safe routes to school in your community. So being able to say, we've gotten $6 million and it has helped us reach 12 schools and we've built 5 miles of sidewalk and had 12 walking school buses. All right, I can't trick you all. You know, this is education. This is a super savvy group. Way to go. And last one, holding an event for your member to see Safe Routes to School in action. You want them to come out and see Walk to School Day? Invite them down. Is it lobbying or is it education? Okay, this group knows what's up. That is education. We are welcoming them to see our work in action and make their own decisions when a bill about safe routes to school comes across their desk. So what I really want you to take away from this is that while lobbying can seem daunting and can seem like, oh, maybe this is something I shouldn't do, Most things, oh, sorry, there's my code. Most things fall into the realm of education and are very much allowed. So before I hand it over to Karma, who's going to present in 1 minute, I want to just reflect on one more thing about this relationship between state, local, and federal work. Our organization, Safe Routes Partnership is not just like, oh, it's a cute part of our name, it sounded good. Truly, it is how we approach achieving our mission. We help set we help set policy and funding. We do professional development and capacity building. We create resources and tools that all of you use in your communities on the ground. And we achieve our mission by working together. And so this photo also shows this virtuous cycle. So this is Senator Kevin Kramer, who's our champion on the Senate side. And then this is my local bicycle coalition in Philadelphia, teaching kids how to bike. And these things really work together. We need the stories. We need members to hear why this matters for their constituents. And then in turn, helping to keep using federal law and policy to invest in our shared movement. And with that, Karma, happy to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Marisa. My name is Karma Hansen, and I am the coordinator for Safe Kids Grand Forks. We are going to go through the slides, and as we do that, I'll give a little bit more of an introduction of myself and the work that my team and I do. I am a nurse by background, and I have been in my role for about 30 years. You can go to the next slide. We are based out of All True Health System in Grand Forks, North Dakota. But on the next slide, you will see the purple area. Oh, nope, go back to the map again, if you would. The purple area on here shows the coverage area that Safe Kids Grand Forks covers. Our focus is on all unintentional injuries for kids under age 19, not just pedestrian and bike related ones, but we do motor vehicle and drowning and falls and poisoning and home and sports and all kinds of things. But today, while we're focusing specifically on pedestrian and bike, I kind of wanted you to get that sense of what our footprint area is, because it will be relevant to the discussion that we're going to have about why this piece of legislation is so critical. Because I've had the opportunity to have a foot, if you will, in both North Dakota and in Minnesota. So go ahead and go to the next slide. I want to just talk a little bit about advocacy. And I know there's a lot of people that really kind of get scared off by that topic. I happen to love it. I have worked on lots of bills over the years, in particularly the North Dakota legislature. Most of them have been related to motor vehicles. Anything from a graduated driver's licensing through a booster seat bill to a primary seatbelt bill. And I will tell you, oftentimes these are not a sprint. They are definitely a marathon that takes a long time sometimes to cultivate those relationships that Marisa was talking about, to build that coalition of people, and to really work that bill to get it over the finish line. Now, I will say this. The way that I think you're most effective in doing anything related to injury prevention is if it's multifaceted and collaborative. And so I put on here, I know there are different people who talk about the ease of injury prevention. Some have 3, some have 5. You'll see on here, I've got 7 because I think they're critical to talking about effective injury prevention. And at the heart of Safe Routes, yes, we are working on health and wellness and all that, but we're also working on safely getting students to and from school so they can do that activity and be healthy in doing it. So I'm going to talk about it kind of from an injury prevention side and talk about what goes into the work of injury prevention, making it effective. And again, that multifaceted collaborative approach I think is important. So what are the E's of injury prevention? First one, education. Nope, go back. Education. I think we do a lot of that. And Marisa talked about that, how you can educate your policymakers, but we educate the public. We're working with a school right now in East Grand Forks, Minnesota, where we just sent home a flyer about the work that we're doing to the parents. We're making a postcard that's going to go out to all the people in the community talking about the school and the speed limits and kids crossing and what time of day school begins and ends and all that kind of thing. You might educate kids. You might educate crossing guards. When we get done with this training today, my colleague who is on it is going to be going to a school and doing some work. She's going to be training Halloween crossing guards. Education can come in a multitude of ways. It's something that we oftentimes do through newsletters or radio interviews or social media or one-on-one or group presentations. Education is really important. Creating an environment and engineering that area is also really critical around schools or getting to schools or around parks. The way we create our environment is going to promote whether they can bike or walk to school and if they can do it safely. Encouragement and economics, I kind of put them together because a lot of times, if we can prove how cost effective a program is, it encourages funders. If we can provide an economic incentive to people to do something, it will a lot of times encourage them to do something. We might also have an encouragement program that's something as simple as, hey, it's winter walk to school day today. If you walk, we're going to provide you with granola bars and hot chocolate out in front of the school for doing that. So encouragement and economics sometimes go together, but is another one of those E's. Enactment. And this is what we're talking about as Marisa laid out the bills that are going to be introduced in the House and the Senate, and hopefully enacting this new safe routes to school component that we are looking to get in that federal legislation. So enactment is getting that. It could be a city ordinance, it could be a state bill, it could be a federal on the federal level, but enacting policy that we know is effective and will work. Once those bills are enacted and we've got a law, sometimes enforcement is a piece of that. Now, having a statewide safe routes to school coordinator, if we don't do it, there's no ticket that's going to be issued. They might say you're not getting your money, right? So it could be ramifications that way, but enforcement might be we have a flashing beacon outside of our school that says the speed limit outside of the school is 15 miles an hour when children are present. And if people are flying by, we want to enforce that law that has been put into place. And it might mean that we need to call in our law enforcement to issue citations. We always have to have evaluation of our programs. There is not enough time or money to do something that we know is not going to be effective or that we can't prove is going to be effective. And I know right now a lot of people are talking about kind of the flux of where we're at with some of the funding and the grant work and things like that. And this morning, the presenter that I listened to talked about how our biggest donors are actually not federal or grants. It's coming from private individuals. And so there is lots of funding out there. And so I think programs that are effective and can show through their evaluative data that they are making a difference. I don't think we need to worry about where the money is going to come from or if it's going to come, because I think if we can prove that, who's going to say no to keeping kids safe, right? And then EMS is another one that goes into that injury prevention. I'm not going to elaborate on it, but the ability for emergency medical systems to respond can play a big role in our injury prevention. So I wanted to kind of set the table with this multifaceted and collaborative approach to the ease of injury prevention. Next slide. So advocacy, Marisa said, what does advocacy mean? And we put up the word cloud with a lot of things. And you'll see I took this off of a Google search. It says advocacy is public support for a recommendation of a particular cause or policy, espousing, approval, endorsement, defense. It could be something as simple as a one-on-one conversation. It could be sharing your voice. It could be, shouting from the rooftops that Safe Kids is advocating for this particular policy. Come on board, talk to your members of Congress or your state legislature. Advocacy can take on many shapes or forms. And, what I loved about Maurice's presentation is she laid out what are some things that could be done and are they stepping over that line of advocacy versus lobbying? Because I think sometimes we say the word advocacy and people get scared and they go, oh, my agency doesn't allow me to lobby. No, but I bet they'd allow you to advocate. And there are a lot of things in the pipeline that we can do that don't step over that line in the sand to move it into lobbying. And so I think we need to say, what more can we do to advocate? Because these bills making their way through Congress are important and they're going to be impactful. Next slide. So, ways of getting involved to making a difference. I'm going to list 4 things that I think are critical, and then I have slides on each one of them that have examples. I'm not going to take the time to read through all of them, but I lay these out to get to what my ultimate point is of this presentation. So, what are some of the ways to do advocacy or make a difference? Number 1, get connected. Number 2, create or join a coalition. Provide education and let your voice be heard. So let's talk about get connected. Next slide. No one understands the issues. You can go to websites, you can go to conferences such as this, you can join webinars, you can connect with experts. There's a lot I know about safe routes. There's a lot I don't, and I can tap into my engineers or other people who know a lot more about some of these topics than I do. Being out in your community and then conducting a needs assessment or a survey are some of the ways to get connected. Next slide. So how do we create or join a coalition? A coalition is simply a working group of people coming together to achieve a certain goal, a common goal that they agree on. It could be experts, it could be parents, local leaders, businesses, children and students. Oh my gosh, kids speaking up and using their voice. Again, who's going to say no to a kid that comes out to advocate? It could be service clubs, it could be victims, it could be other life tech agencies or nonprofits that you bring together to create this coalition. Next way to advocate. Go ahead, next slide. Provide education. Again, I spoke a little bit about this: radio, podcast, newsletter, social media, one-on-one, community events or booths, conferences, community meetings, open houses, television, survivor stories. And I bet if I did a word cloud and asked you to name more, we could fill up 6 more slides of way we could provide education. But again, that's an important piece to advocacy, is providing that education. Next slide. Let your voice be heard. How do you do that? We are heading into an election cycle. Candidates are going to be knocking on your doors or coming to your organizational meetings to seek the endorsement of their political party. Ask them how they stand. Educate them on something and say, I would like you, if I vote for you, to support this. This is important to me. So while they're out campaigning, talk with them about it. Write letters to the editors. Send emails. And the interesting thing is I know our congresswoman and senators of our state and our governor and our legislators. And interestingly enough, they all have a different way in which they want to be talked to. Some want one-on-one, some want a quick email, some want to be called, some want snail mail, less and less, but they all have kind of their own nuances. So listen to what your people are saying of how that they want to let your voice be heard. Community events are a great way to do it, or in-person meetings. Next slide. So I want to go back as I move in kind of to the next phase of this presentation to show you again the framework of where myself and our fabulous Safe Kids GrantWorks team is working. The purple area, you can see there's a big divide right down the middle that separates North Dakota and Minnesota. And I'm going to make my point by showing that I do have feet. Our team works in both states. You can go to the next slide. So in Minnesota, they are one of the states that has multiple FTEs that are dedicated to their safe routes. They have branded it. They have embraced it. They have a whole team of people working on their safe routes to school efforts. In North Dakota, the other side, where my other foot is at, I've got our safe routes under the whole kind of umbrella of the North Dakota Department of Transportation. Now, I want to start this out with a big, huge asterisk. I am not throwing anybody under the bus. It's not wrong, it's different. But can we always do better? Absolutely. Can North Dakota do better? Absolutely. Can Minnesota do better? Absolutely. So I just want to kind of lay out how I see a difference in what this federal legislation could bring by having each state be required to have that statewide coordinator. Next slide, please. So if you go to the Minnesotas, while their safe routes is under their Minnesota Department of Transportation, I will say that they are a state, and Dave Cowan, the national partnership stole Dave Cowan away from Safe Routes of Minnesota, and they are very, very blessed. But I will say Dave Cowan had a big impact in the state of Minnesota, and he and that team there just did a beautiful job of creating this big framework for what does safe routes to school look like. And if you go to their website, and my colleague Tina, who has joined us on this session, she is my pedestrian and wheeled sports coordinator. She's going to drop some links into the chat box as we go to lead you to where some of these web pages are. But if you look at the difference in this web page, it talks a lot about education, programs, grant opportunities, meetings, gatherings, conferences, who to contact. It's a very robust website with lots and lots of information. Next slide. If you take a look at those headers that I mentioned, here's some examples. Statewide coordination. They have people on the statewide level that are saying, hey, Winter Walk to School Day is coming up. Here are some resources and materials. Here's a website where you can register your events so that we can say, wow, look in the whole state of Minnesota, all of these amazing events that are going on for Winter Walk to School Day that's coming up. Or they might say, hey, we've created this fabulous curriculum called White Walk Bike Fun, put together by Blue Cross of Minnesota, by Minnesota DOT, by Bike MN. There's resources and tools so that we've got one cohesive message that's going out. It showcases all the fabulous things that are available in the state. I can tell you, if we go to a school and we say, hey, teachers, you need to roll out a walk to school or a event or a safe routes campaign in your school, they're going to say, oh my gosh, amongst teaching math and reading and art and music and gym and Fayette and all the things. But if we can go in and say, we have this fabulous curriculum, come to the session that our state is going to be holding. We'll teach you how to use it. We'll even pay for a sub so that you can come to that and have somebody still to teach your kids in the classroom. And we're going to teach you how you can roll out this curriculum and how it would be beneficial. Imagine the movement that we can make in biking and walking activities within a state. Minnesota, their statewide people help with the education. They help, go back to the other side, thanks, the event promotion. They'll provide technical assistance and expertise. They also have taken federal monies, and the statewide Safe Routes people went before the Minnesota legislature and advocated for funding to come from them, which hit a big jackpot a couple of years ago. And they were able to have not only federal funding, but state funding that then they rolled those out into grants across the state. It might be for safe routes projects. It might be for a bike fleet. It might be for more of a short term, they were called boost grants, where it was kind of to nudge that project over the finish line or to start it, getting it going. And so that is some of the work that's been done under the grant funding in Minnesota. And they've also done this website development where if you go into the Minnesota website, again, I'm showcasing them because of the fabulous work that they do, but that's all coordinated by their statewide coordinators that just do a fabulous job. Next slide. This is an example of showcasing because there is somebody on the statewide level. If you look at this map, I covered just the uh, top northwest side of this map. If I didn't have a statewide coordinator in Minnesota collecting this data and showing the statewide impact, I don't know that I would know what else is going on in Minnesota. I might be up in my area spinning my wheels while somebody else is doing great things in another area, that rather than reinventing the wheel, we could collaborate and work together. We could issue one press release with the same talking points. One person can say, I'll create a bunch of social media and share it with everybody rather than us all having to do that. It creates this cohesive, collaborative effort. And you can see on here some of the other things that have come out of this state's work by virtue of having a safe routes to school coordinator, a bike fleet, a design planning team, statewide safe routes to school stakeholder meetings. They're both virtual and in person. They hold them throughout the year, every month. They do a statewide Safe Routes to School newsletter where they showcase what the state Safewide network has done, but also they'll take members. A couple of years ago, my colleague Tina was showcased in one of the webinars about the great work that she had done around a winter walk to school. We have people who come up with cool images or activities or events that work real well, that they'll spotlight those in those newsletter communications. And then statewide, they also help with data collection as it leads towards doing engineering modifications that we talked about as being a big part of that advocacy part. Next slide. Now, I hope I've laid the framework, and I did not get paid to talk highly, highly, highly of my friends and colleagues in Minnesota. I did not. But that being said, we love the work that they do, and I think hopefully my conversation has showcased what can come about with that Safe Routes to School coordinator. I want to move you to North Dakota, where I have another foot. And again, this is not throwing my home state under the bus at all. But it is showing that in a state where you saw North Dakota on Marissa's map, we have less than one FTE to coordinate safe routes work. It kind of all falls under this TA funding link on our website. It's there. It shows, hey, we're giving out some funding. But short of that, there's no meetings, there's no resources as far as a curriculum, there's no statewide newsletters or social media campaign. It's just kind of existing in a way that, yes, people can go out and get it. But I will tell you, we were one of the first people, our coalition in North Dakota, to receive a Safe Routes grant. And when other people wanted to apply, the state person that was in charge of giving out the grants to other fund or people asking for funds said, well, call Karma. She knows how it's done. She got the first and only Safe Routes to School grant. And so I would try to help them along, or I would share my resources. But the point being is that me and my team, we just cover a certain area of North Dakota and didn't necessarily have the capacity to cover the whole state. But there is money there that could be used for that person or that role. If only we had something that said we needed to push and have that set up and modeled in that way. And that is exactly what this Safe Routes to School funding bill that Marissa talked about is looking to do. And what I'm really excited about is that North Dakota is where we have a bit of work to do. And you will notice that the primary sponsor on the Senate bill is our very own junior Senator Kevin Kramer from the great state of North Dakota. You can go to the next slide. So this takes me back to, no, go back one more, please. Yep, that one. So this is an example of what this looks like in Minnesota. This is what I look forward to having that in North Dakota as well. I want to have those meet and greets in person or virtual. I want to go to our state capitol and approach our legislature with a collective group of people working on this. This is what I love about Minnesota. I look forward to being able to do that in North Dakota. I look forward to a statewide coordinator that would be kind of the impetus behind getting a lot of this big picture framework going in our state, and not just in North Dakota, but other states as well that may be saying, I could use some help. Go ahead, next slide. So here's a couple things I just want to mention. And Marisa talked about this. What are the benefits of doing these community events? How can we educate? I will tell you, when you get a bunch of kids together, you have some signs, you have some music playing, you get some people in costumes, you make a big deal of this on social media. Invite your people, invite your policymakers to that, or send a picture of this to your federal people, and maybe they can't be at your event because they're out in Washington trying to solve the problems of today out there. But maybe you have this event and you tag the people that in the U.S. Congress that have signed on as a bill sponsor. Thank them and say, thank you, Senator Kevin Cramer, for your work to sponsor this bill in the U.S. Senate. Because of these efforts, we're able to carry out this activity. Maybe as you open that bike path, you thank those members of Congress or the state legislature who are involved. If they can't be there in person, at least help with showcasing them in a public way, because it helps to move the agenda. Next slide. So Marisa talked a little bit about that, making the ask. Now, Marisa reached out to me a while ago when Kevin Cramer came on board as the prime sponsor for the Safe Routes bill in the U.S. Senate. Kevin Cramer, it happens to be a very dear friend of mine in our families, and it was a very easy yes to say, yes, I would love to issue a quote about what this impact will have. And so that ask had been done with Kevin Cramer already by the Safe Routes Partnership. I came on board with a voice to thank him and to be a part of that press release. But what Marisa also did is reached out and said, we have a bill making its way through the House side. And do you think you could ever get your congressperson on board? Well, North Dakota is a small state. It's not hugely populous. We only have one. And I said, heck yes, Marisa. Julie Fedorchak also happens to be a very dear friend of mine and our families. And I said, we just happened to be coming to Washington, D.C. for a statewide or a national conference, which was a week and a half ago for Safe Kids. And I said, do you want to meet me at the Longworth House building? And let's ask Congresswoman Fedorchak if she would sign on. So this was Wednesday, October 15th. We met in Congresswoman Fedorchak's office. She's brand new. She's only been there. This is her first term. For a short period of time. And we went in, and first we talked about my role as a Safe Kids coordinator, what we do for her constituents back in our state. We talked about biking and motor vehicles and all the things that Safe Kids does. And I said, and what I'm here today to do, Julie, is to introduce you to Marisa, who we have an ask of you. And that is to sign on to the House version of this bill. And so Marisa did a beautiful job. She came down on the train, met me there, and we went to Congresswoman Fedorchak's office and laid out, this is what the bill would do. Here's who signed on. It's a nonpartisan bill. Would you consider it? Now, I'm sitting right across from Julie on the other side, and on the love seat right next to me are her policymakers. Her chief of staff is there. The people that are involved in her office in investigating this legislative stuff that we're asking about, to say, yes, this is a good bill, or yes, we should tweak this, or no, we don't want to sign on to this, or yes, we want this. I will tell you, we met in Congresswoman Fedorchak's office at 1 o'clock. And we then went to Senator Cramer's office, thanked them. We didn't even have to ask because he was already signed on. We went there and thanked their people for being our partner in this work. At 2 o'clock, we jumped in an Uber and we got out to National Harbor for our conference. And as I was checking into my motel, I got a text message from Congresswoman Fedorchak and her team saying, yes, we would love to sign on to this bill. So I think it speaks to, you can go to the next slide. This legislation and nothing related to injury prevention should be about Democrats or Republicans. This should be about making our communities safer, making our kids safer, making our people, their constituents healthier, right? So it's not about Democrats or Republicans. Right now, and I say this with just a little bit of sensitivity. I have attended conferences or workshops where there's a lot of bashing the administration that is in power right now. And that's not going to get us anywhere. There are different ways that we go about addressing our issues, but when it's really based on data, it's based on what's effective, and we can show not just passion, but that what we're proposing works. I believe that funding is going to follow, because the keeping kids and our communities safe and healthy is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. We do ourselves no favors when we bash the Biden administration or the Trump administration or North Dakota legislature, the different sides of that. We all need to come together and work together. And so I'm just going to implore each of you that words matter, the way we talk matters, the way we get to a place matters. And I think we just need to say, you know what, we are where we are, and let's work with it. And if our programs are truly effective, it doesn't matter who's in office. We have a story to tell. We're good at telling that, and let's go out and tell that story and make those asks. Next slide. I take you back to where I started. The ease of injury prevention, education, engineering, environment, encouragement, economics, enactment, enforcement, evaluation, EMS. I am really dang good at some of those. My partner and colleague at my office, Tina, is great at some of those. My police officers are good at some. My public health people are good. We're not good at all of them together. So I really say, ask yourself, what can we do better together than any one of our organizations could do alone? And that brings us to this: let's join forces, let's go out and advocate, and just do something to help get this bill across the finish line. Next slide. This is my contact information. It'll be in the slides. I can put it in the chat box as well. But I thank you for being a part of the conversation today. And when you get done with this, I hope you say, you know what, there is something I can do by reaching out to my congressional delegation and asking them to sign on. I could sign on to those list of partners that Marisa put up that are signed on to support this. And so please just do something. And if you have questions, please reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to help.
Thanks so much, Karma. I really appreciate it. Now I'm excited to turn it over to our illustrious and wonderful federal policy intern, Jocelyn Awalabi.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Awolabi, and I'm a junior at Howard University, and I also serve as the federal policy intern with Safe Routes Partnership. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about how, whether as advocates or community leaders, can help advance policy. This entire presentation is about mobilizing communities. We'll walk through the exact steps that you can take to connect with members of Congress, host impactful events, and show the real value of Safe Routes to School programs. At its core, this is about ensuring that every child can walk and bike to school safely, no matter where they live. So let's start by looking at what we're going to cover today. First, we'll start with why it's important to contact your member of Congress and how to do that effectively, what to say, who to reach out to, and how to make your message count. Next, we'll start with inviting your member of Congress to see events in action, because seeing the impact firsthand is one of the most powerful ways to gain their support. And then we'll show what to show a member during these visits to make a lasting impression. And then we'll also cover how to secure media attention. And then finally, we'll go over how to invite and who to invite your members to these events. So let's start with the first step, understanding how to reach out to your member of Congress. Reaching out to your member of Congress might seem intimidating, but it's actually very straightforward. The key is knowing where to start and being prepared. So the first step is simply finding out who represents you. You will go to congress.gov/members and enter your address. In the little picture on the side, you'll see a little text box, and that's where you'll enter your address. Once you click enter, you'll show your senators and who your representative is. Next, with the results, you go to their website. You'll find contact information for both their DC and their local district office. Both are important depending on your goal. If you're interested in influencing or dealing with policy, contact the DC office. But if you're interested in hosting a community event, then you would contact the district office. When you call, remember that staff take notes on all constituents' comments, so you will always ensure that your voice will be heard. And then finally, be ready with some details. Always be concise, have your name, your city, and your reason for calling ready. This makes it easy for any staff to record your support accurately. The bottom line is that contacting your member isn't hard or doesn't require any connections, just preparation and persistence. So now that I went over how to reach out to your member of Congress, let's talk about what to say when you make that call. So whether you're lobbying or educating, there is a way to have your voice heard. This script for educating is great for nonprofits, schools, or groups or people that don't want to or cannot make direct legislative requests. You're not asking for a vote, you are just informing and building awareness. So now I'll go through the script now. You can start out with your introduction. Hi, my name is, I'm a constituent from this city, and I'm reaching out to share information about the importance of safe walking and biking to school. And then you can get into a few reasons on why it matters. Just introducing that a bill or something similar, make sure that every state has someone in charge and helping communities to build safer sidewalks and infrastructure. Some other key phrases that you can mention is that students, parents, and teachers all benefit from safer infrastructure, or even that these programs improve safety and health outcomes for children. And then you would ask for a meeting, or just simply send over some information or resources so the office can review these programs. And then you'll close. Thank you for your time and for your work supporting safer and healthy communities. This approach is a soft touch that can still shape how a staff or a member thinks about the issue later. Thank you. Now, some of you may not have any restrictions on lobbying, and that's perfect. So this script is a great model for individuals who can directly ask a member to take a position. You will notice that there's a direct request to support the bill. So let's go through the script. You again start out with your introduction, introduce your name, where you're from, and then you are calling to ask your member to support a specific bill. Then you go into why it matters. You'll talk about the same thing. This matters to make sure that every state has someone in charge to help make communities safer and so kids can walk and bike to school. Some other key phrases that you can mention is that every child deserves a safe way to get to school, or that having a state coordinator makes it easier for schools to adopt safety programs. Then you'll transition to asking for a meeting. You can say that you love to share more about why this matters in our community, and then is there a great time to meet with a staff member who handles these issues? And then you go into your closing, thanking them for their time, and then again reiterating that you hope that your member will support this specific bill to keep kids safe. So just know that whether you're educating or you're lobbying, the next step is the same, to ensure that members of Congress see the impact of safe communities and infrastructure. So now I'll go into just a few tips to talk to people on the Hill. So when you visit Capitol Hill or talk to any staff, just remember you don't have to be an expert to make an impact. What matters most is being clear, respectful, and personal. So now these are just a few tips to help when you conduct your visit on the Hill. So first, keep calm and just be relatable. A lot of Hill staff are close to my own age and I'm in college. A lot of staff are college students or recent graduates, intern, or very young professionals. I've walked into offices on the Hill and seen my literal classmates and peers working in the office. So don't feel intimidated, just speak naturally and confidently because I genuinely want to hear what you have to say. Secondly, be concise and know what you're going in for. Staff meetings can move really, really fast. When I go to the Hill, a meeting usually doesn't last more than about 30 minutes. So make sure that you keep your points focused. Introduce who you are, where you're from, and why this matters or the reason why you're there. Just to reiterate, if you're lobbying, make your ask clear. If they want someone to support the bill or something similar. And if you're educating, highlight the issues and share the resources and data. Thirdly, sharing stories. This is the most important part and powerful part. Whenever we're on the Hill, we're often asked questions about constituents. When we visited a lot of representatives on the Hill, the staff always believes that information is great, but they will always ask, how does it affect their constituents? So just remember that A person will always remember when a parent asks about a child walking to school in an unsafe environment or when a teacher shares stories about their students struggling to bike to school. This is what brings the data to life, a personal story or connection. And then fourthly, just remember to be respectful and sometimes to leave materials. Even if they don't agree right away, stay professional because at times it takes a while to gather some support. So relationships are built over time. So this is when it's important to be persistent. And then also leaving materials behind, such as photos or something they can refer back to later, because this will make your conversation have a lasting impact. My favorite part about preparing for a Hill visit are putting together handouts. I go to my library and print out infographics, bill tests, and funding from federal projects to make my Hill visits seamless. So, all in all, within all these tips, just remember that this isn't just a local issue, it's a national movement to make sure that every route is safe for students. But we can only do it with everyone engaged. Members need to hear directly from constituents to understand why this matters. So, now that we've covered how to communicate effectively when you're trying to meet with staff or visiting the Hill, let's talk about something else, how to bring them into your community. One of the most impactful ways to strengthen relationships with members of Congress is inviting them to experience a community event firsthand. So, let's talk about why these events matter and what makes them so effective. So, firstly, it builds awareness. Events showcase the real world impact of federal funding going towards infrastructure projects. It's one thing to read about these things, but it's another when you're actually standing outside and looking at it for yourself. This kind of awareness helps members connect the dots between funding and outcomes. And then, secondly, it strengthens relationships. Events are also about relationship building, everyone. They create natural opportunities for members to engage with their constituents, students, principals, parents, and so many people. These relationships go beyond the event, to be honest. They make future collaborations and communications very easy down the line. So when your community is organized and visible, it shows your member that there is support for federal funding for infrastructure projects and people really do care about it. And then thirdly, it inspires action and change. Nothing motivates a member more than seeing the impact up close, like we've been saying. When they meet students, hear stories, and see enthusiasm in their communities, it gives them a reason to act. It makes them want to support the bill. It makes them want to allocate funding and champion a cause. And then fourthly, it generates visibility. A well-planned event attracts local media attention. So it raises awareness for not only the member, but also for the community. So everybody, not just a member, sees that these are issues worth caring about. So events are strategic tools to build trust, visibility, and support. So now let's link into how to actually invite your member of Congress for an event. So just to recap, every member has two sets of offices, like I said earlier, one in DC and one in their home district. So for event invitations, always go with the district office. You can easily find contact information for the offices on their official website, usually under contact tab. And sometimes there's even a invite a member to an event or some type of press tab as well. If you're not sure who to reach out to, you can also send an email for further clarification. So secondly, when you contact the office, you can send an email or a call with the basics, who you are, what you're calling for, and why it's relevant. So just always remember that persistence and follow-up is important because congressional districts sometimes receive tenfolds and hundreds of messages every week, so persistence does matter. And then just a few tips for inviting a member. Timing is everything. The best time to invite your member is during recess periods or district work time because that's usually when they're back at home. And then secondly, send your invitation a few weeks out in advance to make sure that they are available. So if you're not sure how to start, we have templates and examples available through this QR code right here. They include sample invitation emails and timelines for planning your outreach. So once your member responds or sees your message, the next step is to make sure that they see the impact of your work. So let's further talk about what you can show your member to further convince them to attend this community event. So these are a few things that you can show. The goal is to give them a full picture of why they should come to the event and come out into the community. You can talk about the successes and also the barriers that still need attention. So, firstly, one method is to show the wins. If your community has hosted a walk or back to school day, showcase that. If there has been ribbon cuttings or recently completed projects or crosswalks, these are great visual moments. It shows that families and schools are already engaged. This is what these visuals remind members what progress looks like whenever the programs are already feeling supported. But don't shy away from showing what is also needed if there are areas with broken sidewalks or missing crosswalks or unsafe intersections. Point those out as well. The contrast helps members understand why funding is needed and why it matters. So I encourage to show examples of both good and bad things because the safe routes and the unsafe ones do matter. So therefore, make sure you bring photos, maps, or even visuals or videos because they could take these materials, take them back to DC and share it with your team. And if you need any help finding data or examples from your state, do not worry. I'm personally working on a project where I'm collecting all the transportation projects from every state and tracking their federal funding. So if you're hosting an event and need some data, reach out to us because we're happy to share what we have and support your efforts. Because in order to advocate effectively, we all need to work together. So once you've captured your members' attention, let's see how to secure any media. So media coverage multiplies your reach and builds momentum for long-term support. We recommend to coordinate with a member's press secretary. They can help you align on timing, language, and any visuals, and it will let them know what to expect and how your event can be coordinated with the member. Secondly, drafting and sending a press release to local media outlets, school district communications, any newspapers, just keeping it simple. Who, what, when, where, and why, and matters for the community. And then thirdly, one of the most important things, staging photos opportunities. Thinking about what image will tell your story the best. Visuals with the members and people, especially students, make headlines more engaging and drive attention on social media. And then finally, sharing this coverage with your member. After the event, collect photos, videos, articles, and send them back to the member's office so they can reinforce the success of the visit and they can share in their own communications. So now since you've realized how the media works, let's talk about who now to invite. The people and partners really make the events a community effort. It's not about who's in the program, but it's about who's in the room and the connections that you build. So here's just a short list of people that could be worthy to invite. Children and parents, principals and superintendents, local official, again, the media and any photographers, and then members and their staff. This is very important to always have someone with your member to help guide them through the key moments of the event. So now let's look at a final piece, a helpful handout that helps you stay connected after this presentation. So now that you know how to bring your community together and host a powerful event, we want to make sure that you have everything to actually do it. This resource in the QR code includes everything that we've covered today: simple scripts, event templates, media tips, and so much more. It is designed to make the planning process simple, even if this is your first time organizing a community event. If you're planning your own event or have something already, please reach out to us. We want to highlight your work and share your stories nationally. You can contact Marisa directly in the email listed here and scan the QR code to access all the material right away. And then again, if you are collecting data, I can help you out as well with my project I'm working on. So this work is very powerful, and I want to thank everyone for being part of this movement. So I'd love to open it up for questions or anything that we have further, whether it's about event planning or anything you want to dive deeper into. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jocelyn, and thank you, Karma, for your presentation. And everyone, thanks so much for being with us here for this session. It looks like we're a little better at federal policy than time management. So we are at time, and I need to facilitate another session in 5 minutes. But we're going to just take a couple of quick questions before we hop into our regional breakouts. So Jocelyn, I want to turn this one to you. So somebody is asking where they can check whether their member of Congress has co-sponsored the bills that we're working on. Can you tell them about that?
Yes, of course. So it was very important for you to look up the bill text or just on a specific website on congress.gov. And when you look up the specific bill, it will show who's co-sponsoring, and you'll be able to click the link and it'll just literally list who's co-sponsoring the legislation.
Yeah, so we can also put that in some of our follow-up materials. We'll have a slide in here with resources that lists some of those. So somebody asked about if you're running a campaign to educate, to activate your community to support a specific bill or not, and they asked whether that's lobbying or education. I'm happy to answer that. And anytime you are encouraging people or members to vote in a particular way for a particular bill, that counts as lobbying. I'm happy to talk more about that, or there's more info in that on our webinar, but wanted to let you know about that. I answered a couple of the questions in the chat about our besties at the League of American Bicyclists. You can still sign on in support of that QR code where you can sign on. So this is a really good question. And Karma, maybe you have some reflections on it. Otherwise, I'm happy to take it. So this person's asking, how can local government employees be most effective in advocating for safe routes to school at the federal and state levels? Have you done any work with local government partners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the things is collecting some of that data, the local data, right? Getting it as granular down as far as you can get that, I think is really critical. Helping to identify what that impact would be. And then also signing on to a letter, say, for example, so it's not just one person, but it's a whole collaborative, I think really shows that a community or a county or a state has the capacity to put the funding that they're asking for to good use. So I think the more people you can have be a part of that, the more impactful you can be.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. So I know there are more questions and we have to hop to our next session, which is the regional breakout. So you get to meet new friends and potential collaborators in your region. Um, you can send us a message in the chat or we put our contact information here. We are always happy to chat about federal policy and how all of us have a role to play in making it safer, easier, way more fun for kids to walk and bike to school. And thank you so much to Karma and Jocelyn for all the work that you both do and for your willingness to share this information today. And look forward to seeing you all in the regional breakout groups and tomorrow and Thursday. Thanks, everyone.